The ransomware made a key, encrypted the database, and then forgot to save the key. That is not a joke. That is the recovery plan catching fire. Sysdig says JADEPUFFER is the first documented ransomware operation it has seen, driven end-to-end by a large language model. Not a human carefully typing each command, an agent chaining steps together. The story starts with Langflow, an open-source framework for building LLM apps and agent workflows. Sysdig says JADEPUFFER reached an internet-facing Langflow instance through CVE 2025-3248, a missing authentication bug that allowed unauthenticated Python execution. Once inside, the agent did what a fast intruder does. It checked the host, looked at processes and network interfaces, and swept the environment for secrets: LLM provider keys, cloud credentials, crypto wallets, database credentials, and config files. Then it dumped Langflow's backing Postgres database, looking for stored credentials, API keys, and user records. From there, it scanned internal services reachable from the Langflow host. One of those services was MinIO, an S3-compatible object store. JADEPUFFER tried the default credentials, MinIO admin, and they worked. It listed buckets, prioritized Terraform state and internal config, and pulled files named like secrets. This is where the AI part matters. Sysdig says the operation corrected itself as it went. When a MinIO request expected JSON but got XML, the agent adapted its parser and tried again. When a Nacos backdoor login failed later, it issued a working fix 31 seconds later. The first server was not the final target. Sysdig says the intended target was a separate internet-exposed production server running MySQL and Alibaba Nacos. JADEPUFFER connected to the exposed MySQL port using root credentials. Sysdig did not observe those credentials being stolen from the victim environment, so their origin is still unknown. With root database access, the agent attacked Nacos several ways at once. It used the CVE 2021-29441 auth bypass family, forged a JWT using Nacos' well-known default signing key, and inserted a backdoor administrator directly into the Nacos database. It also probed for container escape paths through MySQL file primitives, checking things like Docker socket access, cgroups, mount information, path permissions, and UDF escalation. Then came the ransomware phase. Sysdig says JADEPUFFER encrypted all 1,342 Nacos service configuration items with MySQL's AES encrypt, dropped the original config and history tables, and created a table called README ransom. The ransom note claimed AES 256. Sysdig points out MySQL's default may be AES 128 ECB, unless the server was reconfigured. But the algorithm label was not the real problem. The real problem was the key. The payload generated a random key, printed it once to std out, and did not save or transmit it. So even if the victim paid, Sysdig says the encrypted configurations could not be recovered. Beautiful work, except for the part where ransomware is supposed to be a criminal business model, and not a database wood chipper. Sysdig also says the payloads narrated themselves. They included natural language reasoning, target prioritization, and detailed annotations. Sysdig treats that, plus the 31-second correction, context comprehension, and a strange Bitcoin address, as evidence of an LLM-driven operation. But some things remain uncertain. The source of the MySQL root credentials is unknown. The claim that data was already backed up to a staging server came from the agent's own comments, not independently verified exfiltration. And the Bitcoin address was a famous example address from Bitcoin documentation, so Sysdig cannot tell whether the model hallucinated it or the operator configured it. The defender lesson is not exotic. Patch Langflow for CVE 2025-3248. Do not expose code execution endpoints to the internet. Do not leave provider keys and cloud credentials sitting in internet-facing AI servers. Harden Nacos. Change the default signing key. Keep Nacos off the public internet. Never expose database admin accounts to the internet, especially not root. Replace default credentials. Add source IP restrictions. Add egress controls. Watch for scheduled tasks calling out, database processes touching files, and fast chains of recon, credential access, and destructive changes. JADEPUFFER matters because the individual tricks were not magic. They were old weaknesses, chained quickly. The scary part is not that AI invented ransomware. It is that an agent may make neglected infrastructure easier to ransom at machine speed.